I never used to believe in things lurking in the dark, not until I moved into the old Victorian house on Cedar Street. The place was a steal, 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and this gorgeous, if slightly unsettling, antique charm. The realtor had been almost too eager to get me to sign the lease, dropping the price twice before I even asked. She mentioned the previous owners had left in a hurry, something about a family emergency, but she brushed it off with a tight smile. I should have known better. The first night I noticed how the streetlights didn't quite reach the upstairs windows, how the shadows in the corners seemed thicker than they should be. But it wasn't until Miso, my usually fearless tabby, refused to set paw on the second floor that I realized something was wrong. She'd freeze at the bottom of the stairs, ears twitching at nothing, her tail puffing to twice its size. Sometimes she'd stare fixedly at the ceiling for hours, her eyes tracking something I couldn't see. When I carried her upstairs, she'd scramble out of my arms like the floor burned her paws. Then came the noises. It started with soft, irregular knocks, just 1 or 2 at a time, like someone testing the walls for weak spots. I told myself it was just an old house settling. But then the knocking became more insistent, more rhythmic, like someone was trying to send a message. One night, I woke to the sound of scratching directly above my bed. Not the light skittering of mice, but something heavier, something deliberate. I lay frozen, listening as the scratching moved across the ceiling, pausing right above my head. Then, silence. The next morning, I found deep gouges in the attic. Doors frame, fresh ones. I called the landlord, a Mr. Henderson, who answered on the 5th ring. His voice turned sharp when I mentioned the attic. "That space isn't part of the rental," he snapped. "It's locked for a reason." "But there's something up there," I insisted. "I can hear it moving around at night." A long pause, then quieter. "Just don't open that door." That night, the noises changed. The scratching became a slow, steady drag, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Around 3 a.m., I heard the first whisper. Not words at first, just breath. The wet, labored sound of someone struggling to breathe. It came from the hallway right outside my door. Miso arched her back and hissed at the empty space beneath the ear. A moment later, something scratched at the wood. Long, slow strokes from top to bottom. Then silence. The next morning, I found 5 parallel marks carved into the door at chest height. I bought a heavy-duty flashlight and a hunting knife that afternoon. That night, when the scratching started again, I marched upstairs, my pulse roaring. In my ears, the attic door was slightly ajar. I know I hadn't left it that way. The gap was narrow, just enough to slip a hand through, but the darkness beyond was absolute. A stale, metallic odor seeped out, making my eyes water. I pushed the door open with my foot. The beam of my flashlight cut through swirling dust motes, illuminating stacks of old furniture draped in yellowed sheets. But what made my blood freeze were the footprints in the thick dust, bare feet too large to be mine, leading from the door to a massive wardrobe in the corner. Something inside that wardrobe shifted with a soft creak. I ran. The police found nothing, of course. No footprints. No signs of forced entry, just an empty attic, they said. The officer in charge gave me that look, the one reserved for hysterical women who watch too many horror movies. But that night, as I lay in bed with every light blazing, the whispers came back, closer, clearer. "You let us in," they sighed, right, against my ear. The next morning I found the attic door wide open. The wardrobe inside stood ajar, its doors scratched to splinters from the inside. I moved out that afternoon, left most of my things behind. Last week I drove past the house. There's a new for rent sign in the yard. The realtor was showing it to a young couple. As I watched from my car, I saw the curtain in the attic window twitch. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. But then the knocking started again.